The call, the phone call came at 10:47 p.m., right when silence feels heavier than sound. I was sitting in my home office, staring at the contract drafts I'd been meaning to review for days, when my lawyer's name appeared on the screen. There was no reason for him to call at that hour, not unless something irreversible had finally reached the surface. I answered. He didn't waste time. The lab confirmed it. DNA's a match, but not yours. My hand didn't shake, my voice didn't crack, just stillness. Outside the glass walls of my penthouse, the city blinked in indifferent patterns. Cars below, lives continuing. The same world that had turned a blind eye when my wife whispered "I love you" before kissing me goodbye every morning, knowing she'd drive straight to him. I thanked my lawyer, hung up, and stared at the papers on my desk. Divorce forms, property transfers, prenuptial clauses I'd written myself years ago, back when love still sounded logical. Then I smiled. A small, quiet smile. The kind that doesn't belong to happiness, but to realization. The kind that says, "It's over," but this time on my terms. That's when she entered the room, barefoot, wrapped in her silk robe, eyes curious, voice soft with habitual deceit. "You haven't stopped smiling since that call. What's going on?" I looked at her. The woman I once swore to protect from the world, now the one I had to protect myself from. I set my phone down and said calmly, "I'm happy because I just discovered you're carrying your lover's baby, and my lawyer just confirmed everything I needed to finalize our divorce." Her face froze mid-expression. The silence between us stretched until it became airless. I leaned back. Best day ever. She didn't move, couldn't, and I realized in that moment how terrifying stillness can be when it belongs to someone who knows they've lost everything. It started with distance, not arguments, just absence, a kind of emotional vacancy that filled every corner of our house. She became careful, too careful, the kind of care that comes from guilt, not love. A late meeting here, a client dinner there. Her perfume changed. Her phone always face down. I noticed. Of course I did. I've built a career reading silence in negotiations, lies in eye contact, hesitation in signatures. She forgot who she married, a man whose entire profession revolves around uncovering hidden truths. The first hint came from the real estate records. A penthouse purchased 6 months ago under a shell company. The funds traced back through a maze of transfers, until I saw his name, David Lang, a real estate agent I'd once referred to her firm for an investment deal. I remembered shaking his hand, young, confident, charming, the kind of man who believed consequences were for others. That night, I stared at the document longer than I should have. Not because I was surprised, but because the human mind refuses to accept betrayal when it comes from someone whose laughter still echoes down the hallway. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Confrontation is emotional, and emotions cloud judgment. So I watched. And I waited. The investigation began quietly, like drafting a merger contract no one knows about. I hired no private investigator. I didn't need one. I used what I had: access, intelligence, patience. Her car's GPS logs, receipts she forgot to hide in the trash, a message on her smartwatch that flashed before she realized I was behind her. "Can't wait to see you again. Miss your hands." She deleted it in front of me, pretending to scroll through photos. I said nothing. But that night, while she slept beside me, I memorized the pattern of her breathing. I wondered if she was dreaming of him. Weeks passed. My smile never faltered. My voice stayed calm. I became colder, more deliberate. I began recording everything: timestamps, transactions, even the tone of her voice when she said, "I love you." And when she missed her period, I didn't ask questions. I congratulated her, bought her flowers, watched her eyes flicker with confusion. That was when I ordered the DNA test kit, non-invasive, discreet. She didn't even notice when I kept her discarded coffee cup one morning. By the time my lawyer received the results, I already knew the truth. I just needed proof that would end her performance once and for all. The law was always my weapon, and this time it would cut clean. The report came sealed. I opened it in the same office where I'd once signed our marriage certificate. A single line stood out, printed in cold black ink. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. It wasn't rage I felt, it was relief. Certainty has a strange peace to it. I leaned back, letting the paper rest in my hand. The sunlight from the window fell across the words like a spotlight in a courtroom. Every lie she'd told was now on trial, and the verdict was absolute. That evening, she returned from yoga class, her skin flushed, her phone buzzing with muted notifications. I asked her to sit. She did, cautiously. I slid the envelope across the table. Open it. Her fingers trembled. She read. And then the color drained from her face, like ink washing off a confession. She tried to speak, stopped, tried again. I can explain. I raised my hand, just slightly. I already know. And I don't need your explanations. I just needed confirmation. Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes. She reached for me, but I leaned back, expressionless. In that moment, I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her consequence. The next morning, I called her into my office again. She came in quietly, wearing the same robe she'd once worn when we celebrated closing our first deal together. Her eyes were swollen. She hadn't slept. I signed the last page of the divorce documents in front of her. My pen glided smoothly, no hesitation. Then I looked up. Remember that prenup you wanted to renegotiate last year? She nodded weakly. I never did. Which means the real estate holdings stay under my name. The cars, the firm investments, everything. Her lips parted, but no sound came. And since adultery voids spousal compensation under Clause 14, I paused, letting her connect the dots. You walk away with nothing. The silence after that was almost kind. I stood up, walked to the window, and watched the reflection of her collapse onto the couch behind me. Her sobs were quiet, dignified almost, but beneath them was the sound of something shattering. It wasn't just her pride. It was the illusion that I'd ever be blind again. Finally, I turned back. David won't save you, I said flatly. He already signed a non-disclosure agreement. The firm owns him now. Her eyes widened. You ruined him too? I smiled faintly. No, he ruined himself. I just filed the paperwork. I left the house that afternoon. No shouting, no drama. Just the soft click of a door closing behind me. The sun was setting, gold bleeding into gray. The city lights flickered to life, one by one, like new lies replacing old ones. I walked to my car and sat there for a while, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. Calm, controlled, unrecognizable. Funny how betrayal doesn't destroy you, it refines you. Burns away what's weak, leaves only the steel. I thought about her face when she realized I'd known everything for weeks. The panic, the disbelief. The moment she understood that her lies had been playing on repeat inside a courtroom she never saw coming. I started the engine. Tomorrow, I'd meet my lawyer, finalize the filings, return to the office. Life goes on, just cleaner. And as I drove away, I caught myself smiling again. Not out of happiness, out of victory, out of clarity. Because some truths don't need to be shouted. They just need to be signed, sealed, and served cold. She thought she'd built a life on deception. She never realized she'd married the man who writes the contracts that end them.